God took my life into his hands. Every scar became his glory.
Hello. We are on part 14. And I remember coming to Maryland to meet with Apostle Nikki William. And I remember she being the first woman to ever lay hands upon me. And I remember going back to Minnesota and I submit myself under UCM, Universal Christian Ministry, under the leadership of Bishop Jabril, my brother's church there in Minnesota, where he's a member. And I remember just one day, the man of God called me out, and he says to me, God is calling you to walk into the office of an apostle. He said, you are an apostle. He said, God is getting ready to launch you out. And I remember on that very moment in my life, when I was being called out to the altar, and I remember him laying hands upon me, and I felt on the power of the Holy Spirit. And after I felt on the power of the Holy Spirit, I remember clearly on that day, something was different. Something in my life shifted. And after that shift came in my life, I felt I was ready now to make that move to where God is calling me. So 2 weeks after I stayed with my brother, I had an opportunity to go to London. And at that time I began to pray that God would send me my wife. And I prayed. God began to show me signs. And I went, whenever I was walking around the community, I'll find 3 tennis balls. And those tennis balls is what I'll hold on to as my hope. I was wondering, why do I need a tennis ball? But the Lord said, take this tennis ball. I was taking them. I put them in a pack. And He says, hold on to this where you're going. You will need this. I said, okay. So I remember clearly, after I had prayed and had the opportunity to get information, prophetic information from God, where my wife would be, her name, and the location. So finding that she was in Maryland, she was at a church called Overcomer Ministry. And so I took a flight from Minnesota. After I had fasted and prayed for 40 days, I took a flight. I came down to Maryland, and I went to that church. And as I went to that church, there was a guest speaker at that time. A guest speaker called, now his name is Archbishop Salifu Amalko. And he was the guest speaker for that church at that time. So when I came, I spoke to the pastor of the church, and he said, no, there's nobody with that name. I said, God said that woman is here. I said, that woman by the name of Nana Conte is here. He said, no. And on that day, I met the man of God. The man of God looked at me and says, your name is Sheka, you're from Minnesota, or originally from Sierra Leone. The Lord said your wife will be here. Just like that. Just like that. I was shocked. I mean, I work in the prophetic, but I was shocked when I hear that. And so I said, okay, I'll stay. I stayed throughout the program. And I remember after during the program, there was a woman he prophesied to. Say, on the woman on the third row, on the third seat, stand up for me. So she was sitting on the third row, the third seat. She rised up. It says, "Do you know this man?" That was with me. Says, "Young man, stand up." And I remember standing up, and he said, "Do you know this young man?" And she said, "No, I don't know him." And he says, "Young man, do you know this woman?" And I said, "I never met her in my life. I don't know who she is." He said, "Do you know the name you're asking God for? That woman is this woman." I said, let me look in my notebook. I put my notebook. I said, "The woman I'm looking for, her name is Nana Conte." And they asked this woman, "What is your name?" She then says, "Nana Conte." I nearly fainted. Oh, God. If it's not God, if it's not God, then I don't know. I nearly fainted. No way. And so he prayed for us. He says, "Go, you guys will have 3 kids." Then I then told the man, I said, "I have 3 tennis balls that God told me that my children, their mother liked tennis." Then my wife confessed, "Yes, I like tennis. Well, at that time she wasn't my wife. She was a woman who I just met at the church." Then she later on confessed that tennis was her favorite sport. And that's how we started. Today, we have 3 kids. We have Faith, Jeremiah, and Joseph. Jeremiah is actually my junior. So his name is Sheka Jeremiah Mansare Jr. So I went to London. After I went to London, I was blessed, successful. So she said, "Well, if you're serious," at that time we're not married. So she said, "If you're serious and you hear what the prophet said, and you're of God, then when you go and come back, then we'll follow through with what has been said." And I said, "Okay, sure." So I went to London. First time I was able to go to Peckham. If you're in London, you probably know that. I don't know, some of you. But I was able to go to Peckham. I love the place. It reminded me of Sierra Leone, in a place called Kinjimi, where you pack markets, you sell markets on the roadside, everything. So you get to meet all kind of Africans in that environment in Peckham. So I love the place because it reminds me of back home. Um, Saturdays we go there, and I was there for about a month. And at that time was I left. I met my wife and that whole situation around October 2012. October. I left for November, the whole of November, and I came back December. While I was in London, I baptized people, I prayed for them, I visited homes, home to home people. And when I returned back, they blessed me with some money. When I returned back, my now wife picked me up from the airport. I came back, she already have my clothes ready, brand new clothes, boxer, shirt. I said, Jesus, oh. So I was like, okay. So, my mind was made up from there, and I keep my word. And I went to the store, put in for the ring, and about December 12th, December 12th, 2013, we got married. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful day. It was a life changing. It was my turning point to be who I am now. And I'm so grateful for that. You know, I look at this woman, I'm like, man, I'm married to a model type, gorgeous, dark skinned stallion. What? So I'm really grateful for her. And she's been a great wife. And we have 3 children now. And so my next part now is to tell you what we started to work on and where we are now.